Hi, I'd like to welcome you to episode 3 of Mastering E3.series. Who would have known we'd make it this far? So in the previous video, we took you through how to bring in parts from the database. Okay, this included blocks, connectors, and other parts. Now we're going to show you how to join them up. Okay, so this is the more important bit for us electrical designers out there. So as you can see, I've drawn a simple arrangement in my E3 so that I can have a go at doing some connections. So first of all, I've got a 3-pin connection here and a 4-pin connection here. So a good useful shortcut for this stuff is to press C in your keyboard, because what this will do is this will allow you to start generating connections. There's also a connect toolbar up here, as you can see. So I've got insert connection, I've got auto routing options, bus bar, multi-connect options, auto connections, and I've also got the options of angle clockwise, angle counterclockwise. So if I now go and let's say I'll just do a generic connection, so I'm going to press C and I'm going to connect pin 1 up to pin 4 over here. When you click, you do a confirmation of the line, and if I click that, so now I've shown those connection from pin 1 to pin R3 on Q4. Now what I could also do is, let's say I wanted to do a 3-pin connection from here to X2. If I bring in the multi-connect option, and if I select the pins that I want to do, as we can see, it then brings in the lines like this. If I then click it to confirm it, which will allow me to pivot, and if I then bring it around, I can then do a connection from pins 1 to pin 4. Another bit, if we then go onto this drawing, if I press C, I can then connect onto an already pre-made line to generate a node, and I can connect to here. Alright, so this is a completely made up circuit, guys. I know it has complete and utter rubbish, but I'm sure we can make sense of it. And if I then do a connection down to here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect it to this lovely pressure transducer down here. So if I bring in the connection down here to here, and if I press C again, we can bring it onto this line down here. And we'll also do the final one, and we'll just bring that one onto pin 12. Now, what you may notice is, on my block, I have pre-made signals, which is 12 volts, ground, NA, and SIG1. If I hover over my line, the signal has been brought through from this block. So if I go onto one of my general connections, as you can see, that is signal number 1. And if you guys a hashtag, it has been a system-made one. So every time we draw a line, E3 will bring in a signal. Now, what I could do is I could right-click on that line and go to the connection properties, and then go to net, and I can make a signal. So let's say this signal is also, or this one could in inverse could be a 24 volt signal. Press that. As we can see, it's now got an option of 24 volts. Let's say pin 2 could be a ground signal, GND. Fantastic. Now, if I then did try to do a connection from my ground to my 24 volts, E3 is going to bring up an error in the bottom which has incompatible user-defined signal, okay, which means you're not going to be connecting ground lines to 24 volt lines, which apparently can make stuff quite hot. So that's a fantastic way to kind of do a soft check within your E3 project to ensure that everything's being placed correctly. Now with this, we see this dot here, okay? This dot is not a splice. This dot is a node point on the drawing, okay? So I could place stuff onto it, or if I were going to have 2 wires associated with this line here, I could use my angle counterclockwise and angle clockwise tools here, okay? They allow us to define a direction for a wire connection, and we'll show you that a bit more later on. As we can see, if we have signals which are common, they will then follow through. So I hover over this line, it says ground. This is because this pin is a ground signal. So I could then therefore connect these 2 together, okay? So if I went on to press C onto my ground and brought it down to here, unfortunately my drawing is a little bit funky, but I'm sure we can fit it in. Let's pop it there, and then bring in that connection there. I can connect ground to ground, okay? So this is why they're fantastic to use signals out your project. You could also go to your View tab and go to Signal Tree. And as we can see here, we've got all the signals in our project, okay, including the system-defined ones. So I could just drag and drop these on if I wanted to. So let's say drag that one on, it will then take up 12 volts. Let's say in my project, I need to follow a signal through. If I right-click, I could then go to Highlight. And what this will do is this will highlight all the signals which have the same as the one that's been selected. Now from the previous video, you'll obviously know to reset your highlighting, you'll just go to Reset Highlight. Okay, so I've done some connections, okay, but there's no physical data yet on my project, okay, so there's no wires. In order to bring in wires, we've got a wire toolbar, which can be shown here. Now, I used to work in the off-highway industry, so a lot of wires we used to use were Flory Bs. If I then pick a Flory B as a wire group, if I then go to this drop-down window, I've got one called Bob. Bob's a great guy. I could then pick a 1mm blue wire, for example, and these are the symbols which we placed when I placed the wire. So for this instance, I'm going to choose core type and core horizontal and core type and core vertical. Now I've got two buttons here, which is use default wire when connecting or insert default wire. If you use this one, and if I draw a line in my E3, it will then take up that wire every time I draw it. Or if I use the insert default wire, I could then place wires onto lines. As we can see, they're currently highlighted. Now the ones with these nodes on aren't going to let me place because the connection is not unique, which I'll show you in a second. But if I place this wire here and place this one down here as shown. Okay, if you want to be a bit quicker about it, if I just undo what I've just done, and we'll set up your nodes correctly. So I want to assign a direction. Okay, so if I have a wire, E3 doesn't know whether I want to go this way or whether I want to go this way. Whereas if I do angle clockwise and counterclockwise, I can then say I've got a wire coming up here, and then I've got another wire going down here. So therefore I could then add a connection to it. Or in the event it is actually a splice, I could go into my E3 database, and I just undo the command I'm doing. And if I go to the option of splice, which should be somewhere, if I do know my alphabet, which I do, I've got splice here. Let's just bring in a 2.5mm splice and pop it onto that node there. This will now make that a unique connection point. So if I went and double click this to then drag over my wires, I can add my wires onto there as shown. What I could then do is, let's say I've added those in and that needed to be a black wire. I could go right click on the pin and I could go unconnect cores, and then I could then bring in the correct wire. So go 1.1mm black, which is that. And we can just pop that on and jobs are good. The wire will still remain in my project. So what I would then do is I would then go right click and then I would do a purge on my project. But in this instance, I'm going to show you another way of doing it. What you would do is you would go in and you would select your connection properties. In the connection properties tab, I have a wires and a wire/core connections and a wire information tab. As you can see in the wire information tab, I could just change that wire type to be a 1.5mm black using the drop downs here. Or in the wires tab, you could do the same, as they see in this dialog box here. If you selected all of those in one go, you could change them all in one go. Okay, so that's how we would then set wires. What we may also have in a project is cables. So let's just bring in a quick link lead. So in E3, if I just go find two DTO4 connectors, which again are my favorites, right click, place single pins, and if I flip those and line them up, I'm going to do an auto connect horizontal because these are lined up. If I just select over the area I want, if I don't unpress this click, there we go, let's do that. They then connect together. I can then go to my cables tab, as long as these have been set up in your database obviously. I could then bring in a cable from my database. So I'm going to use this 119204 here, which has 4 cores. I could drag each individual core in as it is, so I bring that core in. If I then did this and brought in that second one, what I've done is, I've actually now brought in a completely new wire. So you need to be careful with this, no drag and dropping straight from the database if you've already brought a part in. So I'm going to delete W2 out, and I'm going to bring in core 2 from there, and then I drag them in like this, okay? So you need to be careful, always be looking in your device tree because the whole story will be shown in there. But I'm going to quickly undo that, and what I could also do is I could go right click, connect cores continuously, drag them down and place them all in one go if I wanted to, which is quite a quick way of doing it. Other things you can have on cables, and if I try and find one which has one, we can have twisted pairs. So let's say I'm going to have this cable here. If I go connect cores continuously and place it there, if I control click on it, I've also now got some twisted pair symbols associated with it. So if I go and drag that symbol on, I can then place a twisted pair symbol into my E3 project, so I know that those wires are twisted. If I didn't place a symbol, E3 doesn't care because it has been structured in the database as so. And this would be the same for a shield connection. If I go to the SFTP, as we can see, it's got a shield symbol. I can just drag and drop shields in. And because in our cable, our bundles will be shielded, there'll be a piece of metal all the way around the cable. I can have as many shield symbols as I like associated with the device because you can technically connect anywhere on it. So if I click on it, I could bring in as many of these views of these shields as I wished. And on top of this, I can also do dynamic cables. This is quite common in the defense industry, okay, where you may well make your own cables in-house. So if what I do is, if I just undo all the lovely work that I've just done, and I go to insert, and if I go to insert cable, in this dialog, I can then set a designation, and I can set the number of cores. So for this one, I'm going to use 4 cores. And now it's gone into my device tree, and if I go into my assignment folder here and go to W1, this is my dynamic cable. There's no data currently assigned to it, but that's what we're going to do now. So if I go to right click, and if I go to my device properties, In my device properties, I could then go through and set the wire information. So I could set the cross sections, outer diameters and colours. I could also go to the cable/cores tab and do them all in one go. I could go, right, you're going to have a outer diameter of, should we say 2.4 mil? So perhaps a chunkier cable. And let's go to a 1 mil. And then we can choose a colour. They're all going to be black. If, however, you choose it's the wrong colour of black, then I don't know whether your machine will work or not. But you can just choose black for this instance, okay? And also importantly with the cable, if I then go to the top level, I can then set the actual outer diameter. So I'm going to make up a number. Let's go for 5, okay? I press OK on that. I've now generated my dynamic cable. Let's say, though, it's going to have a shielded cable, okay? Now, this currently isn't shielding all those wires. So I'm going to go select them all. And I'm going to drag them on. So now there's a shield associated with all my pins. And then let's say these two I want to have as a twisted pair. I'm going to go right click, add twisted pair. And then I'm going to bring those two cores and bring them onto the twisted pair. And I'm going to drag that twisted pair into the shield so that they are structured correctly. I'm then going to go right click. And then I could go rename if I wanted to. I could rename the cores. Okay, so you could do a start string. Let's say I want to go 1, 2, 4. If I do that, you could also do alphanumeric, so it could be W dash, and I could do W dash, and then I could change them to alphanumeric characters should I wish. Okay, if I then go right click, insert cores. No, I don't want to insert cores. I want to then go start placing them. I do it on the top level and go to connect cores and place them as so. Okay, now the symbol hasn't shown up that they're there, but they are. Okay, if I just change them now to be right click, symbol properties, and change these to, let's say, be core name horizontals, and they have to be here. Press OK. As we can see, the cores are shown in E3. If I hover over it, it's also showing them. I could then drag in my twisted pair to my bottom two, and I could bring in my shield symbol. So if I then drag this up just to give me a bit of room to work with, and drag and drop that on, it's then shown as so. And then I could do a connection from my shield onto something else. But at the moment, you just can imagine that as a piece of wire twisted around some cable. You may then have to put a splice on it to show that's what the physical data you want to show. So that's how to do cables in E3. I hope that was useful, and I hope to speak to you soon. Bye. So I'd just like to thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions or feedback on the video that has been delivered, please email the link down below. And if you have any issues with your E3, there'll also be a link to the Zuken website where you'll be able to find out the contact details to the region which serves you. Thanks for watching, and see you later. Bye bye.